Hey everyone, how's it going? This is a video I've been wanting to make for a while, but until recently I still feel like it wasn't completely true, and there's still a little shadow of a doubt. But after recent news, if you haven't seen it already, I think Funko as a product and Funko Pops as a product are dying. The company is not doing very well. Recently there was a image leaked showing that they are increasing their prices again coming up in 2023. And I think this might be the final nail in the coffin for the company. And there's a couple reasons for this, and I just wanted to go over, share my thoughts, what's next. And I don't know why I'm saying like what's next as if this affects me a lot, but I feel like not a lot of people that are into collecting pops or other YouTubers are really talking about this, maybe with the exception of like Skittle Rampage, and it makes sense after all. Most of their living or their income comes from making content off of pops, so they probably want to ignore the fact or put it in the closet, ignore the elephant in the room. But I just want to go over a couple of things that I've been seeing recently that I think could lead to the fall of Funko as a company and Funko Pops as a product. The first thing, like I mentioned before, is recently there's a price increase leaked for the Funko headquarters. Now it's not for stores nationally, it's literally just for the Funko HQ itself in I believe Seattle, Washington. But if you know anything about pops or products or collectibles, is if a store chain like Hot Topic sees that Funko is now selling an exclusive for $18, Hot Topic thinks they can get away, and they can get away with setting their prices to the same. So even though that officially this only affects one single store in one single location, I think it's going to be a store-wide thing with the price increases, and I think that can be kind of scary. Because if you didn't know, on the list it says that the price of one exclusive Funko Pop was usually $15 and is now going up to $18, which is like a $3 price increase. It's not terrible at first glance, but if you really think about it, this is bad, because in the past couple of years there's been a ton of price increases. A couple of years ago you could pick up a pop for $9.99, $10.99, and the exclusives didn't have any premium markup on them, and recently that has been the case. Each pop I believe is now like $11.99 or $12.99, with the exclusives going upwards of $15 to $20 if you go to extreme cases like Chalice Collectibles, where they have a hefty premium on their exclusive products. I think having an $18 pop is crazy, considering a couple of years ago it was literally half that. And I know the economy is bad, inflation and blah blah blah, and I don't really want to get into that. Partially I don't know enough about that, as I'm not an economist, so I can't really comment on that and how this truly affects it. But having something be almost $20 for a figure that's pretty standard, and with Funko not really making a ton of cool looking exclusive or anything recently, I think this is crazy, and it's definitely going to drive a lot of people away, because even that slight price increase really adds up if people buy multiple figures in a month, and especially the average person, which might be living closer to paycheck or having less to spend on collectibles and stuff like this. I think this is really bad for the average Funko person, and personally, as somebody who owns about 150 as well, I think I'm definitely going to be buying less, even less than I've been buying recently, which has been definitely dwindling off since when I first started. The thing that we can't ignore, and is probably the most concrete fact on this list, is the stock price and the layoffs Funko as a company has been. On November 3rd, 2022 to November 4th, 2022, the Funko the stock price crashed from almost $20 down to $8, which is crazy, because that's almost a third of their original value. Their stock fell by over half overnight, and it still hasn't recovered. It's sitting at about $12 right now as I'm recording this video, and that's not good looks, and you cannot dispute this on any level. We can talk about the overproduction, the pops we see out in the wild, the price increases and how we think it will affect this, and how we think that people will buy less, but this is just a concrete fact that the company itself lost almost 66% of its value overnight and still has not financially recovered. I know this caused a bunch of layoffs within the company, We know of a lot of social media people and other production people, like artists and other people behind the scenes that have been laid off. We know about confirmed from those people, and Funko hasn't talked about it. They're trying to kick it under the rug or kick the ice cube under the fridge, and that's just not something that I think we as, or people who collect Funko Pops or Funko Pop products can't really ignore, because that's a huge loss, and they're gonna have to recover that somehow, which could also obviously relate to the price increase, but that's a really scary and tragic fact as somebody who likes to collect. And the third thing that's probably the most speculative is recently Funko has been overprinting and overproducing and making pops that people simply don't want, that are on store shelves, that don't sell even on clearance. One thing that comes to mind was the Black Panther wave that came out. I think overall those figures are super nice, and I like the molds. I think the molds overall as a company are getting better, but there's variations of figures in the common wave that people just don't know about, or even if, as somebody who watched the movie and really enjoyed it, I don't care about the majority of them in there. And the Funko always seems to be behind on new releases as well. Personally, I'm a big fan of the Demon Slayer pops. I like collecting those. But Funko has recently just announced wave 2 of season 1, and they were scheduled for 3 waves. And if you didn't know, season 2 I believe has been out for about 8 months now, I want to say. So Funko is still printing their 3rd wave of season 1, and season 3 will probably be out this year. And I think that's crazy. And you can apply that everywhere else too. Pops don't seem to be coming out as often, with the exception of like super relevant Marvel movies. I think that's more of a licensing thing though. They've been reprinting pops from like Star Wars Episode 1, 2, and 3, a crazy amount, and they just sit there. Even at my local Target, if I go hunting, I don't know, twice a month now, if even. It's really sad to see because the stock never changes. It's usually the same thing. It's usually like the Jurassic Park moments, the Walmart exclusive like Guardian ride thing with the ship. That thing has just been everywhere. I've never seen one of those sell. It's a bunch of like iconic exclusives that nobody wants. Stuff from like Avatar that nobody is familiar with. And it's just kind of not disheartening to see, because it makes sense. I don't think this means that there's necessarily less people collecting. I think there will be because of the price increases and the fact that people are getting burnt out on all these new pops, and a lot of them being terrible or irrelevant at this point. But yeah, it's fascinating to see how the people respond with not buying product that they don't want. I mean, it's obvious, but for some reason Funko doesn't realize this and they keep doing it. Again, this could be a licensing thing in their contract. They have to have a set amount of characters or specific characters from the company. But for a company that lost 60% of its value just a couple months ago, for them to still be doing this as well as laying people off, it's just awful looks overall. And so the final thing I want to touch on is what I'm doing personally with some of my collection. A lot of it are pops that I really like, and even if they were worthless, I probably wouldn't get rid of them. I think they're still cool looking. I think they still have awesome designs and are recognizable characters in a form that you can stack and display really well. But recently I have gone through my own personal collection and got rid of about 30-40 pops that I just don't care for anymore, that I don't like anymore, and trying to get rid of them in any way I can, because I feel like with people having to get pickier on what pops they're going to pick up, a lot of these lower end figures are going to decrease further than they are before, in just hopes that somebody wants them, even though the demand is nowhere there, especially for the common figures. Now, while I personally let go about 40 or 50 pops overall, and that's about only 25% of my collection, I still think it's important to keep this in mind, that the bubble could pop at any point, and your figure could be, or your collection could be worthless overnight. So I'm preparing for, if my collection is worthless overnight, that I'm not too worried about it. I mean, I'll obviously be sad because it's nice to see, and you can't really ignore the price of pops, especially if one triples in price overnight. You're going to want to keep an eye on it, see if you want to sell it, because at some point, I believe around like the $200, $300 range, there's just no point to have the little plastic figure over $300 in your wallet. But that is also just me. So I think that's going to be it for this video. I ranted on a lot, I'm sorry, especially for a topic I really didn't know a lot about when it comes to economy or what's happening behind closed doors at Funko. But I think it's important to notice. I don't think enough people are really talking about it. The average collector is definitely going to be buying less. Funko itself is overproducing, and Funko itself is losing money at an incredible rate as a company. I think these are all things to keep in mind going forward. I don't think Funko Pops ever had this Pokemon card-like nostalgia to them. I don't think they ever will. I don't think there'll be a sudden jump where they'll be worth thousands of tens of thousands. But it's just something to keep an eye on. So yeah, that's all I want to talk about. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you next time.